Alright guys, Ted here back again today. Today is Saturday, going to be discussing a Rostermania rating for this Dallas team that was just announced last night. By the time this video is announced, it's also possible that the Dallas Empire or whatever the branding is going to be for that team has been announced, but I'm recording this in advance of a few announcements, so hopefully this is correct, but hopefully it doesn't go off the ragged edge, and if anything else happens, I will of course cover that in tomorrow's video on Sunday. So yeah, let's hop into it here. I'm sure you guys have very interesting thoughts on this down in the comment section below. Also intrigued as to what teams you guys are going to be supporting this season, especially if you were, for example, an OpTic gaming fan in the last season, with that team scattering right. We've got Dashi and TJ on the Los Angeles OpTic team, rumoured Scump and Former, of course Former wasn't on OpTic, but formerly so, on that Chicago team. Karma going to Seattle, Crimsix going to Dallas. Like, where's your allegiance going to go, right? And I'm sure that's the case of a lot of teams. Say if you're a United fan, you're going to follow Clay to this Dallas team, are you going to follow Sypien and Beezy over to the Atlanta team? Like, who knows? What is the play there? So yeah, that's the kind of things we're going to get into today. Like if you guys enjoy, subscribe if you're new as always, I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks for 15,000 subscribers as well. Probably need to cover that more in tomorrow's video or something and do a bigger thank you, but pretty big deal. And you know, thanks a lot as always. Don't say it enough. Anyway, quick comment here on a Wired article they did on the new PS5. Now, what they've said in the new controller is that the next-gen controller has a USB Type-C connector for charging, and you can play through the cable as well. This is something that we'll have to see how this develops going forwards when the PS5 does launch and when this new controller launches, because, look, we've had to use this Cronus. This is the thing that Karma, after they lost the World Championship, he was saying, like, oh, I'm not playing if the Cronus is still in the game. Cronus is effectively a device because right now, if you connect your PS4 controller through a wire to your PS4, the wire doesn't actually carry any of the information. The information still goes via Bluetooth. The wire is just for charging. You can play through the wire, but it like causes a much bigger delay than even using Bluetooth, right? So the real question, and that's why we have to use a Cronus Max. It has a slightly less delay, a better wired connection than you get through a normal lead. Now, when this new controller launches, is there going to be an actual better cable here we can look at, and maybe that it will be a quicker connection, we don't have to use a Cronus, something to keep your eyes on going forwards for sure. Let's have a look at this then before we get into it. I'm really intrigued as to what you guys think regarding the upcoming season related to coaching and streaming of scrims. Slasher did this tweet a long time ago. I've been meaning to discuss it for a while now. In fact, exactly a month ago from when I'm recording this video. By the way, not a single coach will be allowed in Codcaster again in my lobbies. Spectating better work because you're watching your team only. Mind blown that was allowed. This is a very fair point, I think. Like, it's crazy the fact that, you know, coaches were coming in Codcaster. They could spectate the other team. They could take notes, no problem at all. Now, I can understand, you know, coaches coming into a team, sitting on their team's side, just not spawning in and being able to spectate and see from their team's perspective. But, of course, being able to see the other team's perspective is something which is pretty crazy that was even a possibility, especially, of course, going into franchising. And let's have a look at this Reddit thread here. Chances of pros streaming scrims. I hope more pros decide to stream scrims throughout the life cycle. Such a tongue twister. I enjoyed listening to teams working through problems. I also felt myself getting better at the game every time I would then go in game and try out what I had learned. Now this sounds like a really nice, wholesome thing to wish for, right? Unfortunately, it's probably not going to happen. They'll stream them in the beginning, then gradually stop when the community becomes toxic and post every little thing everywhere. Now, I don't really think this is the core reason. Now, I think we'll find more of the core reason if we scroll a little bit further down. And Joey Nubsy was also on this thread. I'll link it down below saying, like, what are you chatting? Like, there's zero chance this is going to happen. No chance streams are going to be scrims. And, like, Simp also says here that don't even think Overwatch pros, of course, Activision Blizzard also run the Overwatch League, were ever allowed to stream sort of scrim practice, or I guess they mean stream practice. So I'm going to assume it will be the same. Now, apparently this rule was since changed in the Overwatch League, and Simp then says, don't watch Overwatch at all, so I don't know. I mean, at least in my head, I don't see any franchise teams streaming scrims, but I know some won't care. Now, this may be true. I think of the top teams and the teams that have the really serious stuff going on, genuinely a good chance to win championships, and really, I mean, I don't even know if there's going to be championships this year, but really pushing for #1 in the league or winning the world championship, whatever happens at the end, right? The playoffs, whatever it is. Now, you know, the teams that are really in contention there, I don't think there's any chance they're streaming scrims. Maybe very early on in the season, it's possible, like, say, I don't know, November, December time, teams are practicing. The league doesn't even start until January. You don't even know exactly what the maps and modes are going to be yet. Maybe those sort of games, there'll be streams, because there's no really reason not to at that point. It's difficult for other teams to learn from watching your setups at that point. However, once the league starts, I think that's all going to stop. Whether it's going to stop because Activision decides it's time to stop, or and don't allow it, or whether teams and coaches are like, well, why would we give anyone else who wanted to watch a little heads up? EasyMac was also on this thread saying that last season he would buy, subscribe to every single player that streams scrims so that he could look back on their VODs, go through everything, look at their setups, look at their, opening break-offs, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And this kind of thing may sound trivial, but this is a really big deal, right? Like, if you can win a break-off by knowing that one player decides to go, I don't know, say on Hacienda, they go over to where the B-bomb is, they waited about 5 seconds, and then they push in to try and do a little flank on mid, like to try and break the timing. If you know that that's part of their repertoire, then you can set up to counter that. You can win the opening engagements, you can get a good start, you can maybe get on streaks. Like, that's a big deal. The start of a game is a big deal. So, like, the break-off is important. If you're giving any information on stuff like that, even in hard points, then things like that can matter. And of course, in a game like Modern Warfare, maybe more tactical, maybe you want to watch people's streaming scrims to see how they're setting up their guns, like what different engagements are they taking, what attachments are they stacking on, because there's so many attachments in this game. How are they combining that and making the chemistry work between their different players? Something like that could really help out a team that's trying to, nab some ideas from some of the best. Now, of course, once you go to an event, then all these things kind of become apparent when you actually play the game on stream and live on LAN. So maybe it's not a big deal, but be interested to hear your guys' thoughts down below on exactly what you think will happen with streaming scrims this season. I don't think it's very likely at all. So here we go. This is the rumoured roster list for a few days ago, and of course we have Dallas up here, now confirmed, I'm hoping. Hook, Shotzi, Illy, Clayster, and Crimsix. This is the team to look at, and we're going to do a rating video on it today. Very interesting. So let's start off with the incumbent player. That's going to be Hook, and I'm sure you guys have varying opinions on Hook. My opinion is that he's not overrated, just because everyone seems to think he's overrated, which kind of implies to me that maybe he's actually not overrated, when everyone I seem to, in comment sections and in Reddit, seems to say he's overrated and he's not worth as much as he thinks he is. Maybe not he thinks he is, but people think he is, which maybe is a fair comment, right? Maybe he hasn't shown the kind of talent and the kind of performances and the kind of placings that guys like Simp and other really hyped up players have done. Hasn't really hit the heights that he did when he first came into the Call of Duty scene in Advanced Warfare time. Then he, of course, went to Halo, won a championship there, and since he's come back in the World War II days, nothing really much has happened for Hook, right? Now, of course, they're giving him another chance. I still think he's a very, very talented player. He clearly wants to play with Shotzi and Illy, and maybe Clayster and Crimsix are the kind of guys that can get the best out of Hook. It's possible that the players that he's been teaming with before over the past season or so haven't really managed to get the best out of him. Now, let's not deny, he was still putting up great numbers in the Black Ops 4 season. Like, he was still absolutely dominating at times, considered one of the better SMGs, but of course, with not having the placements and the finishes, that, of course, is going to detract to some degree from what people think of your team, from what people think of your play, right? Now, so he's a pretty good starting point, I think, as an aggressive SMG. I really can't go wrong with Hook at the current time. Then we're going to get Shotzi and Illy. This is where the risk comes in the team, but where the incredible potential talent lies. People have been talking about Shotzi, especially Hook obviously knows this guy from Halo, was playing against him for a little bit when he won the World Championship back on that Splyce team, and since then he's come into Call of Duty, dominated in terms of the movement. Like, this guy's movement is filthy. To be honest, Shotzi brings some absolutely unbelievable movement to the game. Now, I know that Modern Warfare may be a little bit more difficult to abuse that kind of thing, but like, this guy is something else in terms of raw talent, especially in the movement aspect. And Illy's movement was also incredible, especially if you guys remember back in the Black Ops 3 days. But Illy also has some insane gun skill to go with it. And we know that these, these Halo type players have incredible gun skill. Hook, Shotzi, and Crimsix back in the day was a Halo player. Like, you have to have incredible gun skill and raw aim and ability to play that game. So, these guys, it's a very, very exciting trio of players. It's possible that they could help get the best out of Hook and Shotzi and Illy as well. Probably the most excited I've been to see players play in a very, very long time. Like, as I said in yesterday's video, Simp and Abizi, like they were pretty, or Simp especially, Celium, very exciting to see them play, but now we've seen them do so well, Shotzi and Illy are even more exciting in my opinion to keep an eye out for. So this as the core trio is honestly fantastic on paper, but as I say, it comes with a lot of risk. You're getting Shotzi and Illy onto a team, two guys that have never played in a CWL environment before. Yes, okay, you can say that, well, Simp and Celium, they all coped no problem. They got in. Simp was Rookie of the Year, best player in the game towards the end of the Black Ops 4 season, no questions asked. A lot of people would put him number one for the entirety of the season, which I think is probably fair enough. Can Shotzi and Illy have the same performances? Difficult to say. I think Shotzi won't have too much issues. Too many issues. This is a guy who's won a world championship in Halo. He's done it all before. He's been there on the biggest stage. He doesn't seem to encounter nerves. He's cool as a cucumber, I think is the saying. Very similar to Simp, I think, in that regard. Illy is maybe where the question marks are more going to be raised because there's a lot of pressure on this guy. There's more, probably more pressure on Illy than there has been on any other rookie before. So much expectations, especially after what's happened in the previous season. This is a guy that watching his streams, he can potentially get heated at times. Things can get under his collar, right? And what's really going to be interesting is, yes, he has an incredible amount of raw talent, and hopefully we're going to see that on display here alongside the other two incredibly raw talented players on his team. But are we going to have any of the other issues that go along with having a guy that's potentially as temperamental as Illy? I think that's something that's worth discussing. Now, is it possible that Clayster and Crimsix can do a great job calming these individuals down and keeping them on a level keel? I think it's very possible, and I think it's a fantastic way to go. Clayster, having just teamed with Simp and Abizi and those young guns over on that E-United team, comes into play with Hoog, Shotzi and Illy. Like, this is just his dream, right? If it was the case that Simp and Abizi decided they didn't want to play with him anymore, and they wanted to move elsewhere and make this kind of weird Atlanta team you can see at the top of your screen, then this is just what the doctor ordered for him, right? Getting a load of young talent back in, and of course Clay's done it all before mentoring these kind of guys, and I'm pretty sure he's going to be the absolute perfect leadership figure to keep these guys on the same page, and it's very exciting to see the possibility of that. Joined of course by Crimsix as well. I wanted to have a quick look back through Crimsix's career here and look at when he's teamed with Clayster in the past and the kind of success that he has had. He can also be a great kind of mentoring player, even though he hasn't really had to do that much lately at all, right? Because Crimsix has been teaming with veterans for the last several years, apart from this season with Dashi and TJ, who probably got on his nerves a little bit. So there's always something to be said about that. There was a clip going about it in the Modern Warfare beta of I think it was on, I forget what the map was, Azir Cave or something. There's a truck on that. People found out that if you laid down in the back of the truck, it just killed you, like you just died immediately. And Illy managed to, I think it was Illy and Shotzi maybe were playing with Crim. They managed to convince him to lay down in the back of the truck and die. And Crim did not look particularly happy, right? And he was thinking, oh god, like this is what I've got to put up with for the next 13 months or whatever. So there's the potential that they could get on each other's nerves there. I think that's a possibility. But look, that's a little bit of a risk, to be honest. The talent and the way the team is composed gives it a lot of potential. And I really like the idea of going with these kind of young guns, especially seeing what's happened with the Simps, of course, of last season on that E-United team, what happened towards the end. This makes sense if you want to be a dominant force and win championships, and you want to sign talent which is potentially absolutely unbelievable and untapped at the current time. Let's have a look through Crimsix's career real quick. Just wanted to go through this because this is some incredible stuff. If you guys haven't followed Call of Duty quite that long, you may not be too familiar with the Complexity team for back in the Black Ops 2 Ghost days. This is when Crim was teaming with Clayster last, as far as I'm aware. This Complexity team, Dynasty, of course, the most dominant dynasty of all time, I would say. We'll go on to the other dynasty, of course, which Crimsix was a part of in just a second here. But yeah, Crim and Clayster won all these events, Black Ops 2. Then they switched out Clay for Karma, kept on winning events, won the World Championship in the 2014 Ghost season, of course. So this is where Crimsix was on this time. Then they went on to Evil Geniuses, had a bit of success. Then they fell off. And then moving into the Advanced Warfare season, goes over to OpTic Gaming, has all this success as well. Team changes a little bit, bringing in Karma for Nadeshot. Then, of course, the fact that they didn't win the World Championship in Advanced Warfare and in Black Ops 3 kind of tainted the dynasty a little bit. I would say this was the better dynasty in terms of it lasted longer. And, it was probably more dominant over a longer period of time. But, of course, this was the scarier dynasty in terms of you did not want to go up against Complexity when they've won 3 events on the bounce, come second at another, then won 3 events on the bounce, and then of course won the World Championship just after that. Like, honestly, just incredible performances from these guys, and Crimsix was a part of it. Then at Infinite Warfare, of course, when they did finally win the World Championship. World War II not as good. Black Ops 4 also not as good for this team. So a little bit of retribution here to be had, I think, for Crimsix coming back onto this squad, because he's had a he's chasing Ogre 2's championship, his championship record, whatever it is. Crimsix is currently on like 34, I think. The whole idea of the pursuit was to chase that 40 championship goal for Crimsix. That's what he's going for, and you know, will he get there? Who knows at this point, but that's the plan at least, and it will be very difficult for him to get there if the trajectory keeps going as it has the last couple of seasons. So I think this makes sense in terms of trying to put together a team that maybe has some downside risk, but has a huge amount of upside potential. That is my conclusion for this team. Where I think this team is going to sit, honestly, I think maybe early on there might be a bit of risk. I don't think it's easy for Ilya and Shotzi to slip into this team and immediately be a dominant force. I think maybe the first couple of months it'll be maybe a little bit slower than a lot of people expect, but towards the end of the season, or at least a couple of months in, I'm thinking this has got to be a top 4 team at the very least, possibly very much championship contenders. I can see these guys being top 3, right? Dallas, Chicago, you know, Los Angeles, OpTic are definitely very scary teams right now. So that's kind of my conclusion. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like if you did, subscribe if you're new. As always, I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks for watching. As always, I will see you next time.